Kia ora koutou. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to this presentation. My name is Helen Gremillion. I'm an Associate Professor of Social Practice at Unitec Institute of Technology in Auckland, New Zealand. And my presentation today is entitled Indigenous Research Methodologies within Postgraduate Curricula, Querying Appropriate Applications of a Kaupapa Māori Approach. This presentation explores the scope of Kaupapa Māori research methodology within the Master of Applied Practice Social Practice, or MAP, program at Unitec. I'm offering this presentation in my role currently as discipline leader for the program. I've been in the role for 1 year, although I've been involved in the program for longer than that. The MAP is a research-based qualification centering on community and employment contexts for social workers, counselors, and community developers. We tend to enroll students who are already practitioners in these fields. There is a focus on transformative change leading to socially just outcomes. In the past few years, the MAP has seen an increase in the number of Māori students enrolled. Currently, approximately 30% of MAP students are Māori. This trend is likely to continue. Hence, the role of Kaupapa Māori research methodology within the program takes on particular importance. The program receives significant and ongoing cultural advice about the embedding of Mātauranga Māori, Māori knowledge, and Ta'o Māori, Māori worldviews, within its curriculum and pedagogy. For example, the Social Practice Māori Champion, the School Kaihotu, or Māori Leader, and Māori Advisory Board members for the MAP have all contributed in one way or another to the content I'll be covering in this presentation today. So I'd like to talk now about Kaupapa Māori principles. Kaupapa Māori methodology is a decolonizing approach to research derived from Māori worldviews and frameworks. Graham Smith, a prominent Māori scholar, writes that Kaupapa Māori theory evolved out of Māori struggles to create alternative education systems in Aotearoa and, quote, is not so much a set of principles, but a space where Māori can work in ways free of dominant cultural pressures and constraints, end quote. Smith does articulate 6 Kaupapa Māori principles that have been taken up in research practice, so I'd like to review those now. These are the principles of tino rangatiratanga, self-determination or relative autonomy, ngā taonga tuku iho, validating and legitimizing cultural aspirations and identity, Akoranga Māori, incorporating culturally preferred pedagogies, Kia piki ake I ngā raro o te kāinga, mediating socioeconomic and home difficulties, whānau whakawhanongatanga, incorporating collective rather than individual cultural structures, and finally kaupapa, a shared collective vision and philosophy. In addition, ethical values or principles that are central to Kaupapa Māori have been codified. Stevenson cites Smith and Cram regarding the development of, quote, 7 community up research practices that assist and guide researchers' ethical considerations when wanting to engage in research with Māori communities. These ethical principles are aroha ki te tangata, a respect for people, I kanohi kitea, the importance of the seen face or face-to-face work, titiro whakarongo korero, looking and listening before speaking, manaki ki te tangata, sharing, hosting, and being generous, kia tupato, being careful, kaua e takahia, to mana o te tangata, being aware not to trample on the mana of others, and kia mahaki, being humble. So now I'd like to talk about the role of Kaupapa Māori within the MAP degree. Core courses in the MAP include coverage of Indigenous methodologies, including Kaupapa Māori methodology. In addition, core courses for any and all students, both Māori and Tauiwi, non-Māori, specify learning outcomes that cover the application of a Kaupapa Māori approach to all aspects of developing research projects, including identifying community priorities, addressing research questions, designing a research approach, selecting appropriate methods, and gathering knowledge or data. So this is a central point of the presentation, that core courses for all students include these learning outcomes, not only Māori students. For the rest of this presentation, we'll explore some implications of the map asking all its students to draw on a Kaupapa Māori approach, broadly understood, for all research projects, again, whether or not Māori are involved. In doing so, the map is furthering its key aim to support students' work with individuals, whānau, and groups to transform practice in ways that enhance social justice and reduce inequalities for communities. The primary way in which MAP students learn to apply a Kaupapa Māori approach to their projects is by engaging what Stevenson refers to as Kaupapa Māori axiology, or underpinning values and principles research. It is important to note that Kaupapa Māori research methodology does not specify exactly how one should undertake research. In this sense, it is recognized, generally speaking, as legitimate to separate out Kaupapa Māori values from any specific set of research procedures or research methods. Kaupapa Māori researchers can use almost any research method of data collection or analysis that they wish, as long as Kaupapa Māori values and principles are applied throughout. However, applying a Kaupapa Māori approach to any and all MAP projects raises a critical set of questions about the scope of Kaupapa Māori values and principles. On the one hand, centering Kaupapa Māori in this way responds to decolonizing efforts to decenter Western approaches to research. In other words, in MAP courses, instead of taking Western research epistemologies as a given, Kaupapa Māori is taken as a given, again, for all students. This approach aligns with a key principle of Unitec's current Mana Kitia Te Rito, or institutional renewal strategy, namely that learnings promoting Māori student success will also promote all students' success. On the other hand, there is a risk here, namely that the use of Kaupapa Māori principles for research projects that are not conducted by and for Māori specifically could end up generalizing these principles to the point that tino rangatiratanga, Māori sovereignty and self-determination, central to a Kaupapa Māori approach, could be seen to be compromised or watered down, in other words, assimilated for other uses. So this is the risk that we need to avoid. In a worst-case scenario, Kaupapa Māori principles could simply be appropriated for projects which do not principally aim to highlight or enhance Te Ao Māori. For this reason, it's been important for MAP instructors to stress the following. The application of Kaupapa Māori principles to projects that are not using Kaupapa Māori methodology, proper, involves a process of translation into terms that are relevant for a given research project. Drawing upon Kaupapa Māori axiology, underpinning values or principles, in this way, acknowledges a Kaupapa Māori approach to research as a powerful model. Kaupapa Māori research values have been recognized internationally as one of the most well-developed set of values for transformational research anywhere in the world. Arguably, these values can be applied in a range of research contexts. What is important here is to apply these values in a way that does not attempt to universalize or assimilate Te Ao Māori. An example from an Arab MAP student's research proposal is instructive here. This student is researching the experiences of Arab families living in New Zealand who are caring for an autistic child. She cites the principle of tino rangatiratanga in her proposal, self-determination, rooted in the goal of Māori controlling their own culture, destiny, and aspirations. She then translates this principle into terms that are appropriate to her project. She notes that her research, quote, will be with an Arab minority living in New Zealand, which has its own identity, culture, and aspirations, and has the right to preserve its cultural identity. Consideration must be given to how uniquely Arab cultural factors affect the therapeutic process for the autistic child and their family. Also, consider the situation for projects involving mixed cultural groups, which may or may not involve Māori participants, depending on who accepts a participant recruitment invitation. Here, the use of Kaupapa Māori axiology as an underlying approach, translated into terms that are appropriate for a given project, mean that if there are Māori participants, the researcher will be in a good position to work in a culturally safe manner with them. In conclusion, in the map, Kaupapa Māori approaches are engaged at various levels of depth and detail. For an increasing number of Māori students working with Māori, Kaupapa Māori methodology may encompass most, if not all, research procedures and modes of engagement with participants. For Tauiwi or non-Māori researchers, usually working with culturally mixed groups, projects draw upon and translate Kaupapa Māori axiology into terms that are appropriate for their particular research contexts. The intention here is to center Kaupapa Māori within MAP pedagogy as a core research paradigm. In the process, we argue there must be rigorous avoidance of any generalized use of Kaupapa Māori, which could be seen to water down its very important kaupapa. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you again for attending. Kia ora.